Welcome to NFL Live. Off-season workouts are underway for the Cowboys and Saints. Lots to get to on both of those teams with the NFL Draft coming our way next week. We're so glad you're with us today. Dan and I are here. We're celebrating an incredible finish in the Masters tournament. Dan told, yep, there we go. I've got my Masters bracelet and earrings.
Play it or win it.
Congratulations,
I loved
Lori.
it.
It was exceptional. Mina Kimes, Adam Schefter joining us, of course, for the hour. Let's begin with the Cowboys, you guys. The Cowboys have had a lot of turnover this offseason. Mike McCarthy is out. Brian Schottenheimer, the new head coach. 9-time Pro Bowler Zach Martin retired. And DeMarcus Lawrence left for Seattle after 11 seasons in Dallas. The Cowboys brought in Dante Fowler Jr. and Solomon Thomas to help on the defensive line and traded for corner Kyer Elam. They also brought in running backs Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. But Adam, let's start with Micah Parsons. He's one of the constants with this Dallas team, but he's entering the final year, of course, of his deal. What more can you tell us about where things stand with him and Dallas?
Well, interesting today, Laura, the fact that he was in attendance for the first day of the voluntary off-season workout program, because he wasn't always there in much of the parts of the last two off seasons. But today, on the first day that Brian Schottenheimer really takes over coaching his team, Micah Parsons was there. And I think it's reflective of the ongoing conversations that the two sides have had this offseason, or should we say that Micah Parsons and Jerry Jones have had this offseason, where it seems like it's tracking at some point for the two sides to be able to get a deal done. There's no reason that the Cowboys shouldn't be able to get a deal done with Micah Parsons at some point this offseason. Don't think there's very much new there right now, but I think there has been some progress. There's a good feeling on both sides, and there's a belief that this deal can and eventually will get done for both sides. Both sides need it to get done, and it certainly sounds like it has a real chance to get done this offseason. And the fact that Micah was there, I think, is a positive sign.
Yeah, Adam, I feel like all of us have been part of those conversations because they've happened via the media in a lot of ways, too. But, Dan, let's go to the other side of the ball, okay? What are your expectations for this Dallas offense in the first year under new head coach Brian Schottenheimer?
I think it looks-wise will be a 180 to what we've seen with this Cowboys offense be under Mike McCarthy. Much more modern. At least if you go back to the time that Brian Schottenheimer last was a play caller in Seattle, a lot of the modern elements that we talk about with offensive football, the play action percentage of 3 wide receiver sets, and then the use of motion. I actually want to see that motion go up. Now, if you look all the way at the bottom, that's the one thing that I do believe has to change just a little bit, is they ran the football on design runs more than half of their first downs. And modern football, the best down to throw the football on is first down. So if he could take some of those schematic things that were in Seattle and maybe deviate a little bit to just such commitment to running the ball on first down, I like a lot of what at least his past shows for what this offense can become.
Yeah, I think it's been really fascinating, Dan, because when you go back to when he was an offensive coordinator in Seattle, it felt like there was a little bit of a push and pull between him and the head coach, Pete Carroll. You alluded to the fact that, they ran the ball on first down. I wonder how much of that was Pete, who loved running the football. How much of it was Schottenheimer? I think we're going to find out now that he's got his chance to completely run the show in Dallas. I agree with you, though, about the nature of the offense. It also reflects how he talked about it when he was introduced. And I think it's something that they can execute with a few additions. One thing I like about the makeup of this offense right now is that they have a very young offensive line, and they've invested a lot into it in recent years.
Yeah.
So they're making a bet that they can get development out of those young players, many of whom got a chance to play last year. And I like that approach to team building. They got to add a wide receiver. They also have to add a running back. And I actually really love where they're picking in the draft for those needs. A common name who you hear associated with him, if Tedero McMillan is gone, is Matthew Golden. Dan talked about the motion, the play action. Having somebody with that sort of speed to line up at the Z receiver outside of CeeDee Lamb, I really like that pairing, especially in the context of the offense you described.
I like both of them receiver-wise in Dallas. I actually think Dallas should take a first-round wide receiver at number 12. McMillan, completely opposite skill set and body frame than CeeDee Lamb. I like the Golden element and something, Mina, that he's done at Texas. When I go and look at that graphic that we put up about Schottenheimer, that second level was the 3 wide receiver sets. They were top 10 in the NFL. You can't do that right now in Dallas.
Yeah.
So that's not only a need for them, but it's also like the schematic way that Schottenheimer, at least in his past, again, wants to play football.
Be interesting if they do end up going wide receiver with that pick in the first round.
Yeah.
McMillan is
I think
that
they
big
should.
body. He can win in matchups, and then you've got Golden, who's just so fast, and he's a big play guy too. All right, so we did know, Adam, that Dak Prescott is feeling healthier. What's going on with his status right now?
Yeah. Well, he feels like he's recovered from that hamstring injury that ended last season. He feels like if they played a game today, which they're not, he could play in that game if they had to. Now, they'll manage it here during the offseason, and they'll treat it with great care and caution as they have. But Dak Prescott is trending the right way, and he's going to be full go, ready to go for the start of training camp this summer. So that is all very encouraging for the Dallas Cowboys, the fact that Dak Prescott has recovered the way he has. The Dallas Cowboys are about to pull off one of the biggest trades in recent franchise history, and it's not just rumor anymore. This thing is real and close to being done. According to sources around the league, the Cowboys are finalizing a deal that would send our third-round pick, number 76 overall, plus a 2026 third-rounder, straight to the San Francisco 49ers for Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey isn't just any running back. He can run, catch, block, do your taxes if you need him to. Imagine this offense. Dak at QB, CMC in the backfield, CeeDee Lamb out wide, Ferguson at tight end. That's firepower we haven't seen in Dallas since the 90s. And let's be honest, after losing Tony Pollard, this team needed a weapon like McCaffrey.
All right, we'll leave that here. Keep an eye on the Cowboys for sure. But let's go to the Saints, whose offseason workouts also begin today. Derek Carr is dealing with a shoulder injury. More injury updates from Adam. What more can you tell us about Carr's injury and what it means for the Saints QB room, Adam?
Well, this is something that the Saints have known about for a while, and it's something that bothered him last season, but now it's come out that maybe he is facing the prospect of having surgery that could derail a major, if not all, of his 2025 season. It's a peculiar situation. It seems like there's a lot going on here. There's more than we've heard so far, and we're waiting more details to come in about this particular situation. But if we go back and look, it seemed like there was some issues between the Saints and Derek Carr in trying to get a new contract done. Then they get the new contract done. Now there's conversation, speculation about whether the Saints would be drafting a quarterback. Carr is going to the last year of his deal. It just seems like there's a lot of things going on here right now, more unknowns than known. What's known right now is Derek Carr has a shoulder injury that he's had. He could miss time. And now we wait to see what's causing that, where it goes, what happens. A lot to still be determined in this particular situation.
When Adam frames something that way, it means, okay, pay attention to this. Watch this. Something's happening there. I mean, with what we know right now, should the uncertainty around Carr's health impact what the Saints do early in the draft?
No, absolutely not. If they loved one of the quarterbacks enough to draft him with Derek Carr, go ahead and take him. But Derek Carr's injury shouldn't make them reach for a quarterback or change their mind. It really comes down to how they evaluate those two players, Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart, after Cam Ward, who's going to be gone by then. And I'll add this, Stan, a concern of mine with the Saints taking a quarterback is this team is very far from being a quarterback away, and I would worry a little bit about a young quarterback being thrust into action. To my eye, they need offensive tackle, wide receiver. You know, Chris Olave's got his injury history on that side of the ball. You could add running back as well behind Kamara. And then on the other side, all three levels, they got to get younger and faster. So, look, if they really love one of the quarterbacks, you take the quarterback because who knows when you're going to get another chance. But I'm just saying I would be a little bit wary given the state of this roster.
So my initial point was going to be, does Kellen Moore want a running quarterback? But I do think it's worth having a conversation around the talking point of you only draft them if you love them. What happens if you really like them? You know, there are quarterbacks that are just good players. And if teams are going to get stuck into this mindset of we are only going to draft that position if we love them, how many guys in the NFL are worthy of being falling in love with that position?
They do have 9 picks in this draft. You wonder, like, do they think they could get somebody later?
I go back to last year and I go, and Shefty could probably talk to this a little bit, but did Denver absolutely love Bo Nix, or did they really like him? Did Minnesota, no questions asked, love J.J. McCarthy, or did they really like him? And so the love versus like thing I just find is interesting because at some point you need a good player. You need a good player to at least have a chance.
Well, Dan, let me say this. When you are drafting a quarterback, you are marrying him. And you don't marry a partner that you like. You marry a partner that you love. And the Denver Broncos didn't like Bo Nix. They loved Bo Nix. Okay? The Minnesota Vikings really liked J.J. McCarthy. I think they would have liked to have had Drake May, but they couldn't marry the woman that they really loved, so they settled for the next best thing. And in this particular case, I think the draft is all about where you attach the value. Now, I don't know where the Saints have grades on Jackson Dart and Tyler Shuck, but if they feel like they can get one of them in the back end of the first round, in the second round, maybe they feel like the best thing to do is wait. I even had one football executive say that the best thing the Saints can do right now, and they would disagree with this in New Orleans, it was just a suggestion for another team, the best thing they could do is tank this year and then try to see if they can entice Arch Manning to come out after next year to come back in to play quarterback in New Orleans. Now, we're getting way ahead of ourselves, but it's fun to speculate at this time of the year when we're going over scenarios like that. But Dan, let me just leave you with this. Would you have married your wife if you didn't love her? No, you would not have.
No, of course not. Absolutely not. I was lucky that she loved me more than I loved her.
Oh, go Mina.
Okay.
There you go, Dan.
I really like the question that you posed, Dan, because I actually think context matters in this, similar to relationships. Frankly, people are more likely to settle a little bit, maybe when they're further along in life, they want to have kids. And it's kind of the same with an NFL franchise. Like, if you're a team that truly is either a quarterback away or you're really stable and you got a good roster, I actually think there should be greater willingness. Hey, let's just get a guy we really like versus a team like the Saints that really has so much, I feel like, rebuilding to do. Weirdly enough, their standard for a quarterback, I feel, has to be higher because they have other things to do on their roster.
While we were having this conversation, I sent in a pitch to our bosses to change the name of our show to NFL Live and Love, because we have now figured out how to give relationship advice.
I'm not giving any of
quarterbacks.
that.
I wasn't talking about you,
coverage.
Dan.
I just want to talk coverage.
I was talking about Mina's advice and Adam's. We're just getting started on NFL Live. Hey, the Bears extended Kyle